Welcome back to the Best of series. This is a series that I've started where I look through the best of a specific character through comic books, whether it be through trade paperbacks, hardcovers, omnibuses, and I thought today we would do Spider-Man, a much bigger variety, where with the Batman one, I didn't have a lot of omnibuses, but with Spider-Man, when I really started collecting Spider-Man, was surprisingly pretty recently, in the past, 3 years, and by that point, I was really into collected editions, so there's a lot more omnibuses that I own compared to trades. A lot of the trades that I own are more obscure stuff that aren't really good enough to make this list, but there are, of course, still a couple. I talk about things in canon and not in canon, and I do it in chronological order, starting with the trades. We'll go in chronological order, then we'll talk about the omnis in order, and then we will talk about the non-canon stuff. So, with that out of the way, let's get straight into this. Alright, so since we're going in chronological order, the first trade paperback that I want to talk about is the Amazing Spider-Man, The Goblin Lives Epic Collection. This is volume 4 of the Epic Collection line, and I honestly am newer to Epic Collections. I don't own a lot of them. I mainly get them for reading orders, and this is one that I've got for the reading order because it collects a lot of really good stuff in here. But it's also not one that is really important. There isn't a ton of new characters introduced in here, but honestly, I think this is a really good book to get you into Spider-Man if you want to read some more of that Golden Age stuff. Or not Golden Age, since Spider-Man's more Silver Age, but you get a lot of great John Romita Sr. artwork in here, who, rest in peace, absolute legend. So you get Stan Lee and John Romita Sr., which is a powerhouse comic book team, some of the best when it comes to writing and art. So you get to see them together. You get you get a lot of really good stuff in here. You get the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 1, the magazine, black and white one. You get a lot of fun stuff with Doc Ock and Aunt May and their relationship. You also get the return of Green Goblin, and there are now 2 Vultures, and how that story plays out, you'll find out. You also get Mysterio in here, and then the Spectacular Spider-Man thing here, and then here's the Goblin Live story, which will eventually lead into the deaths of many important characters. Next book, The Death of Gwen Stacy. Obviously, you have to read this one if you want to get into Spider-Man. One of the most iconic Spider-Man stories of all time, and there's a reason. They really went in a direction that I don't think most comic books had gone in yet, where they killed off the love interest. And it's a really dark story. But that's not the only great thing about this book here. This is one of the older trades. But this was during the era where you have the Comics Code issue drama, or basically you had the Comics Code, which was featured on each issue, and it said this book was approved by Comics Code. You can read it all ages or whatever. But there were 3 issues of Spider-Man. Yeah, 3 issues that weren't approved by the Comics Code, and it's issue 96 through 98. And the reason being is because Harry Osborn, the son of Norman Osborn, starts doing illegal substances. Read more in here, but so it's a much darker point in Spider-Man, but this is still earlier Spider-Man, but it goes in a direction where it kind of just shows that comic books can be mature even in the 60s. So you get a very important story for Harry Osborn. You also get the death of Green Goblin and Gwen Stacy. So this is a really good story. You gotta read this. This is one that everybody should read, even if you're just one of the most important comics in general. Next up, my all-time favorite comic book when it comes to Spider-Man, Kraven's Last Hunt. But this specifically is the one I get, that I suggest. Instead of just buying the Kraven's Last Hunt trade paperback, which is a direction you could go, and if you want to, you could just buy the Kraven's Last Hunt trade paperback. But the reason I say you go with the Epic Collection, which this is volume 17, the reason I say go with this Epic Collection is because it also collects the marriage of MJ and Peter Parker, which I think is also a very important story. So it's funny where they get married, and it's really happy. There's really fun issue, and then the next issue starts Kraven's Last Hunt, which is one of the darkest Spider-Man stories, where Kraven decides to go for one last hurrah and shoots Spider-Man and buries him alive, and takes over the role of Spider-Man. You get some great stuff with Vermin in here, and MJ, and how it ends and what Kraven's fate is great, and all the stuff with the sewer. one of the darkest, but one of the best Spider-Man stories. And then again, you also get the marriage, which is a very important story as well. So next up, this is an older trade. This is Spider-Man Visionaries by Todd McFarlane. Even though I don't think this should be called Todd McFarlane, I think this should be Spider-Man Visionaries by David Mazzolini and Todd McFarlane, because this is the stuff that David Mazzolini wrote. This is during one of the most iconic Spider-Man runs. David Mazzolini, Todd McFarlane, powerhouse duo, great writing, great art from Todd McFarlane. This collects issues Spider-Man of Amazing Spider-Man 298 through 305, and this sets up the Venom story. And some of this stuff is collected in an omnibus that we'll talk about, but I still think you need to specifically get this one because this has a lot of really iconic Spider-Man moments with like Silver Sable. Obviously, you got to read some of this Todd McFarlane artwork. Like, you got to see it, dude. It's something else. And then you get the introduction of Venom. Great stuff in here. Really good story. We're going to be skipping a couple of decades, or a decade, I guess, and we're going to Spider-Man Back in Black by Jason Michael Straczynski. So this took place after Civil War, and in Civil War, Spider-Man revealed his identity. And because of that, Aunt May is shot. She's shot at the end of the Spider-Man Civil War trade paperback, which is long out of print, including this one. This one is long out of print. I just happened to luck out and find it at a comic shop. But this thing goes for like $200 online. And but it's a fantastic story where Spider-Man is going in a really dark direction that you've never seen him go before, where he's literally doing everything he can to figure out who is responsible for shooting at May. He's not holding back at all. And what happens in here, the confrontation with Kingpin is absolutely insane. Where Kingpin is in prison, but he puts on a suit and they battle. But Peter Parker's like, I'm not going to beat you as Spider-Man. I'm going to beat you as Peter Parker. And it's brutal. It's one of the more darker Spider-Man stories, but it's great. Written by Jason Michael Straczynski, who we are not done talking about. We'll talk about him more later. But Spider-Man Back in Black, it's a great story. Now we're going to move on to non-canon stuff. So this is some random stories here. The first one I want to talk about is Spider-Man Life Story by one of my favorite modern writers, Chip Zdarsky, and of course, absolute legend when it comes to Spider-Man, Mark Bagley, teaming up together to basically do this story where it's like, what if, you follow the decades of Spider-Man, like 60s all the way to now, but he actually aged. So it's like a realistic take on Spider-Man where he ages as the story goes along. So you go from 1960s all the way to the 2000s. And it's really cool. I really like the way they tackled the story. It gets a great send-off to Peter Parker, and it's a really good story, and everybody needs to read this. It's a great tribute to Spider-Man. It shows why he's such a great character, and it's really cool to relive some of those iconic comic book Spider-Man moments, but with, him actually aging. Great artwork from Mark Bagley, great dialogue, and great writing from Chip Zdarsky, and this is one that you definitely need to read as just an overall great tribute to the character of Spider-Man. Now we're going to talk about all of this is from the Ultimate lines. First up, we have Miles Morales, Ultimate Spider-Man. I literally just got this trade paperback like 2 days ago. I got it from my neighbor, and I read it immediately because I am really excited about the story, and I've been wanting to read it. And this is the introduction of Miles Morales in the Ultimate Universe. This was after Ultimate Spider-Man died. They needed a new Spider-Man, so they introduced Miles Morales, written by Brian Michael Bendis. It's a great story. I really dug it, and if you like Spider-Verse and you want to know where Miles Morales came from, this is the book I'd suggest picking up. And I wouldn't mind getting the omnibuses. I'm trying to get all the Ultimate Spider-Man omnibuses, so I guess that would include this. And now we gotta talk about the new Ultimate Spider-Man run. Whenever they announced that they were redoing the Ultimate Universe, I was very intrigued how that was gonna go. But when they announced Spider-Man was gonna be married with kids, I was like, okay, good. The main timeline isn't gonna do that with Spider-Man, but at least these non-canon books will. So you get to see Peter Parker in a more happy place, but it's like, and at first I didn't know how I'd feel about it. Like, I read the first couple of issues, the first couple of issues of this trade, and I didn't know how I felt about it, like the symbiote ball or whatever. But I reread this first trade paperback, and I loved it. I was like, okay, I finally get this. I finally get what Joshua Williamson is doing. Jonathan Hickman. I finally understood what Jonathan Hickman was doing. I love the new take. And then picked up Volume 2. And by this point, I'm just in love with this series. I love what they're doing, and I cannot wait to continue to pick up these trades as they come out. And I'm really digging this series, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. All right, now we're getting on to the omnibuses, and the first one I gotta suggest is, of course, Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1. This is the one where, the one that started it all. You could, of course, collect the trade, the Epic Collections, but this is the route I wanted to go. An oversized artwork. You get the introduction of course, Peter Parker, Aunt May, Vulture, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Sandman, the Sinister Six, Electro, Lizard, Kraven, Mysterio, Scorpion. So many. This is where you need to start. And I'm not a big fan of Silver Age, Golden Age stories, but this one was actually really good. I really dug this, and I'm not just saying that. Like I bought it because I knew I needed this stuff. But I didn't know if I'd actually like it, but I read it, and it was really easy to read. It was a quick read. I really, really enjoyed this stuff, and this is definitely one of my favorite omnibuses. This is one that everybody needs to own. And it's out of print right now, I think, but Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus, Volume 1. Next up, Spider-Man versus Venom. This is kind of a compilation omnibus, and usually I don't like those, but this one was really good. So this is basically showing all of the early stuff between Spider-Man and Venom, where you get his introduction to, by getting the symbiote. You get him and Eddie Brock's first meeting. You get him and Venom teaming up, and then eventually you get the introduction of, like, Carnage, and then you get Maximum Carnage, and the Wolverine miniseries, the Ghost Rider stuff. Like, you're getting all of the kind of earlier Venom stuff, and this was some of the best stuff of the 90s, where I know a lot of 90s comics kind of get a bad rep, but this is some good stuff here. You get great artwork from people like Todd McFarlane, Mark Bagley, all throughout the 90s, and it's fantastic. It's really good. Y'all gotta check this one out. It's a really fun compilation omnibus, and I mean, just look at this Mark Bagley artwork, dude. That's the stuff you're getting in here. That quality of artwork. One of my favorite omnibuses, again, because, I mean, a lot of great Spider-Man omnibuses. There's a couple in here that I love, including this one. Great one. If you want to see the first couple appearances of Venom, get that one. Next up, we have The Amazing Spider-Man by Jason Michael Straczynski. Probably my second favorite Spider-Man omnibus. My first one we'll get to later. But this is written by the creator of Babylon 5, and Jason Michael Straczynski is one of my favorite Spider-Man writers. His run with John Romita Jr. is insane. And it is funny, because on one hand, although it's so great, it does have two of the worst Spider-Man comics of all time. Sins Past, which is terrible, and then One More Day, which I do like, but I didn't like. Oops, sorry. I do like One More Day, but I didn't like it enough to put on this list, because I know a lot of people would think that was stupid. But this is a modern Spidey masterpiece. Like, the dialogue in here is incredible. Well, you don't get a lot of, like, the iconic Spider-Man villains. Like, you're not seeing a lot of Doc Ock or Green Goblin or Vulture, although they are on this cover here. But, like, it's incredible. The stories that Jason Michael Straczynski tells are incredible, and the character moments, especially the stuff with Aunt May, I love that. He fixed MJ's relationship, well, for a little bit, until Marvel decided he couldn't do that. And you get the stuff with him as a teacher. I loved Peter Parker as a teacher. If you played Spider-Man 2 PS5 game and you wanted to see more of that, like, if you liked the idea of him as a teacher, read this book. This is the one that you should read. And yeah, it's great. It's some of my favorite Spider-Man moments in here, and it's really good stuff. So yeah. The last in-canon Spider-Man book that I want to talk about is, I think, the last great Spider-Man run that we have, other than Ultimate Spider-Man, but that's different. That's in its own universe. And that is the Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer. So yeah, this, I think, is the last great run that we've gotten from Spider-Man, because since then we've gotten Beyond and the Zeb Wells stuff, and, that isn't stuff that is exactly praised among fans. My mic is flopping over. Hold up. 1 second. But yeah, sorry about that. I'm having problems here. But if you like Invincible, Ryan Ottley, incredible artist. His version of Spider-Man and the way he draws these characters are incredible. You get Spider-Man being roommates with one of his more obscure villains. That's really fun. This introduces the character of Kindred. In Volume 2, I believe, collects stuff with, like, Harry Osborn, but I don't own that. I need to get that. Yeah, I really dug this book. It's a lot of fun. It's a more lighthearted take on Spider-Man. But I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. So this is one I definitely suggest picking up. the last two go hand in hand, and those are Ultimate Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1 and 2. I don't own the other ones, but I want to collect all of Ultimate Spider-Man because it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, comic book run of all time. I don't know what I could say about this that I haven't said before, but it's like a soap opera of Spider-Man where it has a beginning and an end. Brian Michael Bendis, one of my favorite writers of all time, and his work on here is incredible. The way he reintroduces and modernizes all of these characters in a new alternate universe is incredible. You get the reintroduction of Peter Parker, Doc Ock, Electro, some great versions of these characters in here. And it's a great, great story. I really dug this stuff. You got to read this if you haven't. There's, I believe, 4 omnibuses out right now, plus the Death of Ultimate Spider-Man, and then Volume 5's coming out. And I believe that double dips with Death of the Ultimate Spider-Man. But I want to collect all this stuff. I only own the first 2 volumes, but this is a series where I want to own all of the omnibuses because I love Ultimate Spider-Man. It's so good. And it's great. So that's the one you definitely need to read. So those are all the Spider-Man books that I suggest. I think that is the best of Spider-Man. Let me know in the comment section what are some books that you would suggest putting on this list. I don't own everything, obviously, so I can't put everything, but let me know what you would suggest. I hope you guys enjoyed. We're really close to getting monetized. I want to be able to upgrade the quality of the channel with like a new camera, be able to buy new equipment, be able to buy more books. I believe I have to get the 1,000 subscribers. I am close to getting that, and then I have to get 4,000 watch time hours. So if you want to help with that, please consider subscribing if you haven't and continuing to watch. And hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, stay geeky.